where we got midway through and I was like, oh no, I didn't hit record. So I am doing so. Welcome to the Thursday book celebration of the anthology. We got this, and if you don't got this is what it kind of looks like. Yes. And this is what we are so fortunate to have all 4 editors here. And I think, right? Oh, and you've got a cat. Thanks, Janet.
Oh, sorry. This is Charlie.
Oh, Katie, that's a big orange kitty. Those are my favorite.
He'd like to meet your chickens.
Oh, yeah, my orange cat really thinks they would. There's like oftentimes a face-off between in the storm door between the cats and the chickens. Pretty serious. They all know that there's a partition though, which is good. But so I am going to swiftly turn it over to the 4 editors, and if you have questions for them, or something comes to mind and you don't want to miss that opportunity, put it in the chat. We'll make sure that we come back to it. But the fortunate thing is that we have the opportunity to ask questions and to really engage each other in conversation, and at a time when community is so very important. This has been something that has been life-saving for me. In particular, this book I think is very life-saving. I think that when you talk about being a solo mother, the need for community is palpable. Like it feels like in your bones, that desire. And Marika started a group, and one of their sayings is, being a solo mom doesn't mean being alone. And I think that was something that I really embraced because, I never anticipated being a solo mom. I had a marriage that didn't work out. And, I remember those grueling days of thinking, this is really hard. Like, I know, and there's like an action, like I read people's words on that. And I was like, oh, wow. So, it's not just me. It wasn't just me. And then that resilience is built, I think, through community, through being able to be held up briefly in each other's company. So thank y'all so very much for doing this. I know how lucky we are to be in y'all's company. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Katie. So I thought the best way to do it would, like, if we can just maybe have each of y'all introduce yourselves and kind of talk about how you came about creating this anthology. And, it's obvious to me that there was an intentionality towards diversity of voices, diversity of experiences and backgrounds. And I really deeply admire that. But Cheryl said that y'all have never been in the same room together. And that kind of blew my mind. So I wanted to hear, how did you 4 choose each other or come together? And how did you navigate creating the anthology?
Maybe Marika should start.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Hi, I'm Marika Lindholm. So yeah, I just want to say how much I love the co-editors here, and I'm so excited to all be here together. And when you ask about how we came together, it just feels magical in some ways. I founded a website called ESME.com, empowering solo moms everywhere. And all 3 of the co-editors here were integral in getting this website off the ground and helping. And, Katie was our editor at large, and Dominica was there from the beginning writing, and Cheryl was our LGBTQ, expert and editor. And so we've been working on this. It's a 5-year, commitment already. We've helped probably 1 million moms. And so one of the things that we noticed was that we had a section called Showcase, and we allowed, we asked women to submit their work. We started getting some really incredible poems and essays, and we're like, wow, there's a mother load out there. So yeah, I think in dialogue, we just realized that this was something that we could do. And it wasn't an easy project. It started out just starting with some original content, but mostly ESME content. And then we got feedback, and we realized that we really needed to bring in some big hitters, some well-known names. So, Amy Poehler, Mary Carr, Anne Lamott, that was important. And then we wanted to make sure that up-and-coming writers were acknowledged. And then there were such great writers already writing on ESME. So we did take some pieces from the site, but then worked with them and edited them. And I wrote an email and saying, you guys are the ones I want, and you're my dream team. And it wasn't like, I just feel so lucky because this is the team that we came, I didn't have to go to the second tier or the third tier. I got the top tier right here. So
For the A team?
I got the A team, and I want to point out I'm a sociologist. I'm not, I wasn't trained as a writer and wasn't trained. I was trained as a sociologist, and then I did this entrepreneurial thing, and then it was just so incredible to work with such expert writers and expert editors, and so that's where I'm going to turn to the next one. But I'm just thrilled. I mean, if the book was a passion project, it wasn't easy. We have Dominica in New York City, Cheryl out in California, Katie in Chicago area. I mean, me upstate New York. So it was, we were definitely talking like this a lot. But anyway, Cheryl, I'll turn it to you.
I'm like, was it hard? I thought it was just fun. It's like what they say about forgetting the pain of labor. I found ESME in the way that you do, just by talking about what kind of work you do and what you're looking for. I had one of those conversations with a friend who I ran into while we were both picking our kids up at school, and she's like, my cousin is starting this thing. You should be in touch with each other. And so that's how I got dialed into working with the website. Which it was, random connection. And when Marika asked me to come in as the sort of the poetry side of this project, I was super excited. I mean, I already loved everybody. We got to know each other throughout the process. I had done a couple of anthologies already, so it wasn't foreign territory to me. And going into something with 3 great partners is always brings a lot more confidence, I think, than going into something alone. So the dynamic is great. The chemistry is great. I adore these women. I always, was happy to look like I had combed my hair in time for that meeting, and always felt even better afterwards. I couldn't say more wonderful things about this process. And it was a process, but it also just felt like I guess we just knew it was going to come together. So if one person was feeling down about it, the other people would jump in and be like, "We got this." The name of the book. Okay, so we mutually cheerleaded and took turns being the emotional engineer, keeping the train going.
Katie, you want to go next, or Dominica?
Sure, I can go next. So Marika and I go way back, like way, way, way back.
I'm gonna cry.
And I guess, we met in a writing class. Well, that's not really where we met, but we got to know each other in a writing class, and had lots of misadventures when we were both single. And I think I'm the only of the editors who was never a single mom, although I do have a husband who works a lot, so I think I could tap into that single mom stress and anxiety and everything that goes with it pretty easily. And I was just so grateful when Marika recruited me, first of all, to be the editor at large at ESME, because I do a lot of editing as my day job, and it's interesting, but it's not like my passion. It's not fiction, it's nonfiction, and it's a lot of business stuff. So this was just always a ray of sunshine to work on. And it was just a great process. And there were some setbacks, but I feel like it was all kind of meant to be. So
I think it made the ultimate book better and that
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
went through some hurdles and we had to revisit
Mhm.
and we had to push harder. And I think that
Hmm.
the end result is better.
Yeah, we definitely stepped up our game at a certain point, and the book's the better for it.
I love how quickly y'all all had this energy of agreement and enthusiasm, even though obstacles really can be frustrating. I love that. It was really fascinating to watch all four of you kind of go, yeah, it made it stronger. It made it a better anthology.
It's
Yeah.
funny because when you said that, Katie, when you said we had setbacks, I was like, setbacks? And then I was like, oh, that's when we would text each other and cuss a lot. Somebody would get hopeful, and then we'd keep going. That
Right.
it felt like a
during the process, and then near the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Too.
I think with the right crew, it feels less like a setback and more like a speed bump.
Yeah.
See, I can see how y'all did this. I can see how you pulled off such a feat, really, with the four y'all. Thanks. And Dominica?
Yeah, it was amazing. I feel the process of working on this spoiled me for any future collaboration for the rest of my life, because we just said yes to each other. We just said yes to each other, and there was such a deep trust that if there was like an essay or a poem that I wasn't crazy about, but somebody else loved it, I was like, okay, I trust you, so yes. You know what I mean? Like maybe if you love it, then it needs to go in the book, and I don't need to fight about it. I don't think there was anything that I wanted that anyone said no to. You know what I mean? And like we got to really work, as editors, when we worked with writers, we were really empowered to make the work better in the way that we thought would shape it for this book. And we just supported each other in this, truly beautiful way that it was just the spirit of yes, we support each other. You like it, we like it, we're doing it. And that made the book so much stronger. And then I also forgot, I was like, what setbacks do we have? And then slowly it was coming, because I just love this book. Like, just looking at the cover makes me so proud and so happy that I forget the labor pains, like Cheryl said. And but I remember, because in other, in books that I'm working on my own, I fight so much harder for what I want now, because I learned how to do it with this anthology. I watched Marika fighting for representing us and fighting for us while we're all cheerleading her, and I learned to have a stronger voice when there's even something about a cover, even if I'm like, I don't like that cover, and I speak up now, whereas before I wouldn't. And I learned that through doing this anthology. So it's such an amazing transformative experience to be part of it.
Yeah, no, I love that too, that there's things that this catapulted in individually for y'all. And, I think we couldn't fit all the awards listed on your book. I don't think it's a huge list. I mean, the last time I saw it, it was like as big as the book cover.
We have
basically pretty much for any independent published book, I think we won pretty much every award.
You did, and it's not a surprise though, and that certainly must be amazing feeling, because when you send it out, you trust each other, but you don't know how it resonates in a larger sense, and clearly it's unanimous. It's a hell of a book.
I remember my daughter, who's 23, reading it from cover to cover, and I was so nervous because I when they say we were cheerleading each other, they were mostly cheerleading me, because I was very, I'm kind of more anxious and more, uncompromising, and all those, characteristics that, very Virgo. And I was worried, what is it going to be like all together? How is it going to flow? And I just handed it to my daughter, and she read it from cover to cover, and she's like, this is so good. She's like, and she wanted to talk to me about the different essays and the stories. And she, she's like, this one made me cry, and this one, and it was the first time that I felt that life to it. And I felt very, very excited for other people to read it. Before, I was a little anxious for other people to read it. And suddenly I was like, oh my goodness, and then I sat down and read it from cover to cover again, and I was like, wow, this is so moving, and we do so much, and I'm so proud of it.
Yeah.
For me, it was my yoga teacher. Like, I show up to class and she's got tears in her eyes, and she's a single mom and a solo mom, and it just made me feel like, okay, we did this for her. If nobody else reads it, I'm just thrilled that it meant so much to her.
That's what I was
Unfortunately, other people did read it.
Yeah, I was wondering, Katie, because I saw your face that there was like a real live thing that really meant the world to you. And I saw Dominica also nodding. So I was wondering, did all of you have kind of a person whose impact you could visibly see, or that you really trusted their response?
Marika and I had an experience at the Brooklyn Book Festival where we were hand selling books. We were basically like buskers, like people walking by, and I was like yelling at them, and we were like using her dog.
Very animated.
My son, and they're like, "Come, we have cute puppies and cute kids. Come talk to us." But then we met this solo mom who was going on her first vacation since becoming a solo mom with her kid, and she needed a book to read, and we were like, "We have that book for you," and she was so excited to have this book, and it was this beautiful moment. I was like, this is who we made this book for. It's like the solo mom was going on vacation. She's going to be reading this book with her kid next to her, so she's not going to have a lot of time to dig into like Tolstoy, you know, but like she's going to have time to read a gorgeous poem or a gorgeous 3 to 4 page essay, you know, and then put it down and then wipe her kid's spill and then go back to the book. And I just imagined her on this plane reading this book and having the best time and feeling so not alone.
Dominica, I have to bring up what happened when we were in, the bookstore near where I live, where the woman who was recently widowed.
That was amazing. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yes.
A young woman was recently widowed, and her mother bought her this book, and she said, all these people have been trying to give me things and do things for me, but I have to say that this book has been my lifeline. This book makes me feel not alone. And she came to our reading and she wouldn't leave. She wanted to be around us because she knew that we had been in.
We understood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, and that's so powerful. That is so powerful. And, I really felt like reading this book, one of the things that's palpable as a reader is that y'all's investment is in this sense of it matters that we make a difference in your life. I think that's very apparent. I do. And I think it's because of the intentionality that y'all had as a group to be of service. And that's beautiful. And, I was saying, yeah, sure, read, because we're going to go to, like, everybody's picked out something to read today. And I was like, I need to get Kleenex because I know I'm going to be crying. But there, a lot of it's happy tears, that beauty, that beautiful, tender beauty that is so moving to me. So
I think that one of the things that was really Marika's vision in the beginning, and that we tested against everything we put in the book, was it goes back to what you said, Marika, about this, everybody's handing me these things and I'm not finding any of it helpful, but this is the thing that's helpful. Because when you're in a place of trauma or crisis, often you don't want advice. You want to relate to somebody. You want somebody to say, I can relate to you. And that's really why we did what we did. And I think that in writers in general, when we realize that our work is doing what we want it to be doing out there in the world and having that impact, I don't know that there's anything more gratifying as a writer than that. There's the act of creation, very gratifying. Everything else, whatever. But that moment where somebody shows up at a reading and says, I just had to come meet you, that's incredibly gratifying. That's what we did it for. Here are our love letters to all you solo moms out there. And the resilience in this, it's not just the stories are stories of resilience. These are people who wrote these stories while they were going through this shit, you know, or a year later or whatever it was. But it's like they didn't just have the resilience to go through it. They had the resilience to go back, make sense of it, and then offer it out to other people in hopes to offer some solace or sisterhood or allyship, some form of relating. And I think and there was no way we could lose with this book, you know, because we knew what we needed when we were solo moms. We knew what we need in isolation. And with the treasure trove that ESME as a website is, we also knew a lot of other people's experiences and perspectives. You know, everybody has a slightly different take on how they became a solo mom, or what it meant to them, or what it means to them, or what their challenges are. And so we got to see it from all these different perspectives through ESME. And so then we also kind of knew the diversity that we wanted to represent in the book.
Awesome. Yeah, very true. I love how you put that. And I know that Marika picked out a piece that she wanted to read that's really emblematic of ESME. And I think it's a perfect one, but I'll go ahead and tell people, you know. Yes.
So it's not one that I wrote. It's by a writer, Issa Down, and it's called Taliqua. And you might recall there was a story of a whale, and it was in the news, and we can talk about it after, but this is what Issa Down wrote about that. Taliqua's baby lived for half an hour. Although it's not unusual for some mammals to carry their lost babies with them, Taliqua carried her baby on a morning tour for an unprecedented 17 days and 1,000 miles in oil-laden waters, devoid of enough fish to feed the pod, let alone a grieving mother whale. She labored to push the weight of her baby against currents, diving deep, lifting her above the choppy waves, up toward the sky and light and air. Exhausted and hungry, Taliqua carried on. Members of the pod stepped in to help carry her baby, allowing Taliqua time to recharge. In a very real sense, they were allowing her to rest, to breathe, while they carried her sorrow across the sea. A mourning mother supported by women around her. And for a few strong mothers, our pods keep us afloat too, lifting us to the surface, taking deep breaths and pushing forward. In those few brief moments, we float uninhibited, weightless, breathing deep, until suspended, we forge forward a little lighter. And that is, Issa submitted that to ESME, and we published it. It was so beautiful, and we cut it down, we felt to the essence of what it, for the book. And I feel like that's what ESME does. That's what the book does. It, we're a huge pod supporting each other. And there when someone's mourning, there when someone's celebrating, there when someone just needs, some empathy.
Oh, it's perfect. It's beautiful. And it's hard not to have that, just deep feeling of that. Because I think a lot of us watching the whale with that. And I was so happy. I almost sent y'all the video of her with her newest baby from this summer.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you
Oh,
not?
yeah.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I will send it. I just assumed.
Please, I need this.
Yes.
I need this so badly right now.
Okay, I will send it because I put it on there and I was like, I'll come back. But I thought, oh, they've probably already seen it. No, it's lovely. I mean, it's just, it's amazing.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Can't we use some good news, really?
Truly.
But thank you for reading that, because I know it's just such a beautiful one. And then I know that y'all each picked one out, and so I thought we could do that. And if you could read, and then we'll just hold space for it. But if there's something more about like why that particular one is resonating, that's fine too. If there's not, that's okay too. Dominica, you want to go?
Yeah. This is a poem all of us loved instantly, and the decision to put it first in the book was one of the easiest decisions we made, because this truly sets the tone for the whole book. It's called The Road by Theresa May Chook. I say my children are like lightning bugs. I see how they glow in the dark. sometimes it is the only light I see. And this is a poem I think about often, especially this year. My heart returns to this poem often, and feeling so despondent with the world, and then looking at my beautiful kids and being like, no, there's such a reason to keep fighting, and there's such a reason to keep working. And this poet it captured that in so few words so beautifully, and it's just one of my favorites.
Beautiful. And I think what's so mysterious about that poem for me is no matter how many times I hear it, I still find that gasp of like, it's still so powerful, and it's so neat, and you've got it, and it doesn't have that same power, but this one always does.
Yeah.
So thank you, because I had forgotten about it. I need to print that one out and put it someplace.
Yeah.
Really so excited when we were like, oh, this has to be
Easy.
the first. That got to be the start of the book.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Thank you. Katie?
If you'll go next, Katie, because I picked 6. So
Excellent.
you do what you want, and then I'll figure out which one of my 6 I got to pick.
Okay, you can read them all. I know that Breonna Taylor has been on all of our minds, especially in the past 24 hours. And so when I was looking for something in the book to read, this poem jumped out at me and made me think of her. It's called The Lost Woman by Lucille Clifton. I need to know their names, those women I would have walked with, jauntily, the way men go in groups, swinging their arms, and the ones, those sweating women, whom I would have joined after a hard game to chew the fat. What would we have called each other, laughing, joking into our beer? Where are my gangs, my teams, my mislaid sisters? All the women who could have known me. Where in the world are their names? I'll just leave it there.
That resonates
Katie,
so
that
well
was
today.
perfect.
Yeah.
I've been reading Lucille Clifton all week. They just, BOA Editions just came out with a new collected of hers, and they resonate so beautifully. Some of them I haven't read since I was in my 20s, and to bring them back into my life now and get them at a deeper level, because I'm not in my 20s anymore, and to have them resonate today. So much has not changed, and her wisdom is timeless. So I highly recommend that. So I will read, I'd like to read Adrienne Rich's poem in here, because we're with a poetry group, and so, sometimes a one-off read of Adrienne Rich falls a little flat for people who don't read a lot of poetry, but when we're with the poetry group, I think everybody will feel it if you don't already know the poem. The reason I wanted this poem in the book, and I had this funny job of trying to find out which poets were solo moms, because you don't usually know that, right? And I was like, Adrienne Rich, she was divorced like in the 60s, so she must have been a solo mom for some stretch of time. Or Lucille Clifton's husband died young and she had 6 kids, so I had to kind of really think of what were some of my favorite encouraging poems about sisterhood or parenthood, and then dial back and be like, no, not a single mom, and try to find them that way. So long before any of this, I have loved this poem because it's really a poem about making your own way in the world. When the ways of the world don't work for you, you've got to find your own ways. And whether that's the expectations of motherhood, or if that's, the expectations of the dominant culture, or, fill it in, the expectations of a religion that you were raised in. So that this poem is really about, breaking away and trying to find your own way. And I thought that really applied to solo moms. So this is from 21 Love Poems, and it's number 13. The rules break like a thermometer. Quicksilver spills across the charted systems. We're out in a country that has no language, no laws. We're chasing the raven and the wren through gorges unexplored since dawn. Whatever we do together is pure invention. The maps they gave us were out of date by years. We're driving through the desert, wondering if the water will hold out. The hallucinations turn to simple villages. The music on the radio comes clear, neither Rosenkavalier nor Götterdämmerung, but a woman's voice, singing old songs with new words, with a quiet bass, a flute plucked and fingered by women outside the law. That poem, I had created this painting with that in the middle of it when I was like 20 something, and it has never lost its impact on me. It's never lost one iota of its power through all these years. I was really excited to have an opportunity to have
I was
that.
going to say, what's really amazing is that, you were able to put it in the anthology. Really?
Marika deserves the credit.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Marika was in charge of chasing down all of the copyright permissions, which is the least
fun.
job. Yeah.
That must be the part that, ugh.
Well, and then, she just,
It was super
all
boring.
praise.
What?
Laborious. It was boring. It was hard. It was, you had to be super organized. You had to be persistent. And some of the authors, you had to secure rights, not only in the United States, but in South Africa, in England. And then you had to pay different, it was, I needed a big chart. Like I said, I'm a Virgo, so okay, but I really need to do that many charts. But yeah, I was very persistent and trying to, and sometimes we had to, like Ruth Stone, she's passed on, and then her, apparently at Wesleyan University is the one that, it was being somewhat of a detective, just being persistent.
That's what I was wondering. How do you even track down? That's a lot of work. That's amazing that you accomplished, because there are so many really well-known writers and some that have passed on that are included in this anthology.
We only, there was only one that we couldn't get. It was
Only one.
Only one. We got everybody.
That's how persistent she is.
Exactly.
Let's be clear, other people would have given up on a few of these.
Exactly. Even Toni Morrison, we got right to her quote, and we had Padma Lakshmi writing us personal emails about her personal life. I was like, I don't need to know, Padma.
Amazing, though. Come on, that's great.
Yeah. So.
No, but it speaks, also it sounds like that people had different abilities that meshed well together too, which is awesome.
Cheryl did an amazing job with the poetry.
Yeah.
I was like,
even as a reader, you enriched my life so much and brought my new favorite poets that I love so much, I'd never heard of before, like January Gill O'Neill, and I learned from Cheryl in the making of the book. So I appreciate Cheryl's work as a reader, forget as a co-editor. It was so amazing, the work you did.
It was a pure pleasure. To have my job be go find good poems. It's just like, are you kidding me? And I pulled, actually, Malika, you were going to read yours. I pulled Malika's book off of my shelf. I'm like, I know she's got to have something in here that would be perfect. And that was just great fun. And I discovered.
I wondered how I was so, excited because I got the email from my publisher, Press 53, Kevin, with Marika's email, and I was like, sure, do whatever you want, let me know how I can help. And then when I found out Cheryl was involved, I was like, oh, that's how, because I wondered how I had such good luck. And you actually picked out the very first poem I wrote when I was realizing I needed to leave my husband, my ex.
That's why it resonated.
How you did it, but that was like that was the turning moment.
You should read it right now then for us.
Oh yeah, and I also want to say Marika had a great game on Facebook where she would say to authors, where do you think, here are the chapters, where do you think your poem was placed? We were all wrong.
That was fun. I remember that.
Right? That was hilarious. I was like, I'm in that section? And so, you know, I just realized I have Taliqua still, instead of my poem, that's where I had the bookmark. Because it's just a beautiful, it is kind of, it encompasses the way this book works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and as somebody, when you, like, it's nice to be able to open to a page and it's a quick read. It's bite-sized for moms. You know, it's very, like, people say, oh, have you read a novel? And I'm like, oh. Now I can, but that was not something I did much of. And Lucille Clifton used to say, you know, my poems are short because I'm raising kids. Yeah.
And she had her typewriter on her dining room table in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
Like that's how and it was a typewriter and it was in the middle of the dining room table and she had 6 kids. So, you know, it's like anytime I feel like I don't have time to write, I'm like, what's my excuse? You know,
Well, and she was so prolific and so profound. You know, when Furious Flower did a celebration of Lucille Clifton, 73 poems for her 73 years on this planet, I sat in an auditorium. I was on the board of Furious Flower, and 73 different writers, mainly poets from all across the country, for no pay, came to read one poem on a stage. From Rita Dove, Elizabeth Alexander, Jericho Brown. I mean, you know, some of the best of the best. It was amazing. And you think after 73 poems, the part of you would say, enough. I could have sat there for the rest of the night.
Oh, wow.
You know, because it was just so moving, you know, and having different voices interpret these poems, embody them. You suddenly realize, you know, that was an amazing, phenomenal woman.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
What I like about the book is, I mean, I'm not someone who would generally read poetry, and like Dominica, I'll say that, you know, Cheryl really educated me and got me to be more interested in poetry as a reader, but I'm hoping we do the same. You know, I know that moms are responding, and moms that probably never read poetry are responding to poetry and realizing like it's the words of the heart and all that. So, I mean, I love that we have that blend of short essays and poetry, and then we have some inspirational quotes in there, and you know, it's a kind of book that many people can connect to. They'll all find something in there.
And that's another thing that I like about it, is that, you know, it encompasses so much of different genres, and that's not something, you know, I do best, for me, like if I can read poetry and then some nonfiction and then just, you know, a little quote, because the quotes that you have in front of every chapter are all like, holy crud. You know, they're amazing. You pick the exact, I mean, I want to open up to a sample. Oh, you know, like I'll go to one of them, because I know no matter which one I choose, it'll be a good one. But that was part of what I liked. Katie Couric, you don't have the bad cop when you're the good cop, and when you're the good cop, you don't have the bad cop. You're like the whole police force in your family. There isn't anybody to play off of, you know?
Yeah. No, they really, I love the one, which was the one about you just get up and go downstairs, even if it's just for a cup of coffee.
That was,
that's one of my favorites. Michelle.
Oh, Michelle Williams, right?
Michelle Williams.
That's who it was.
Mm-hmm.
We should find that one so you can read it. While you're looking, I'll read my poem. But like I said, this was the poem I wrote with my women's spirituality group. They just took a moment and they said, you know, after meditation, just write down whatever comes to mind. And this poem pretty much came as is. And that's when I realized I'm going to leave. How I came to me. No longer am I dispossessed or repossessed. I am possessed. I am in possession of myself. I am self-possessed. The sun rises in my throat and burns a perfect hole in my forehead where cliff swallows roost. Each raindrop falls perfectly into place on the greenness of me. I want you to know that at this edge of my life, I will jump I will jump. I will jump and I will fly.
I just
Yeah.
realized I just did the same wiggle I do when I taste good food. I was like, it's so good.
It's
It's
really
a treat
lovely
to hear you read that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nika, that means so much to me that y'all included that, though. It really did.
Mm.
You know, and that's something I think is you can't estimate how much it means to the writers. I mean, everyone that you chose, you included in this family of experience, you know, this anthology. So it's just amazing. It really is. And it's so lovely to have all y'all together for this.
Well, so you were in the chapter Here Comes the Sun.
Yeah.
Yes, it blew my mind. And I think I told you, like, I don't know what chapter I thought it was, but I didn't have it right. And I was surprised how many, I think I put like, when one door opens, another one closes. Like,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
it was hard for me to see it as that. And it was Here Comes the Sun for me. I mean, it really was.
Yeah, we
But
have.
for
it was
you,
hard
you
to-
were at the beginning of the journey, so it didn't feel like that.
That's what I was going to say, Katie. It
Mhm.
felt, you know, it felt like the opposite. It felt like
Mhm.
a door closing and not knowing, is there going to be something to walk through?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a hard thing to do, but it was, you know, again, coming back to that very first poem, I had daughters and I could not co-sign this being how I get treated, because they were
Mhm.
watching and I wanted them to have a different life. And I knew in order to do that, they had to see me create a different life. So
Mhm.
Well, isn't that the danger of writing poetry? It tells you the truth that you didn't know about yourself. And then you're like, well, shit, now I'm accountable for this. You know?
true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Mhm.
No, that's awesome. Did you find the quote?
I did. She says, you make it work. You keep getting out of bed. Sometimes it's just because there's a cup of coffee downstairs. That's Michelle Williams. And the funny thing is, one of the first things I started doing when I became a solo mom is I would make the coffee the night before, and I'd put it on a timer so it just started, like Mr. Coffee Drip coffee maker thing. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd hear my coffee brewing and know that I had done it for myself the night before. And I was like, so that was that resonated with me for a personal reason as well. But I love the attitude of it. Like, you make it work, you figure it out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that necessity, you know, knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we ended with that Here Comes the Sun, of course, because you want to end on a positive note, but the journey that we take, every chapter is a song title, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not so easy in the beginning, right?
Mhm.
So we have, you know, the kids are all right, but Lean on Me, A Day in the Life, you know, Good Morning Heartache, Change is Gonna Come, Isn't It Romantic is all our fun dating stuff. And then, you know, ending with Here Comes the Sun to show that, you know, there is a future that's bright and meaningful, and you got this. But we do show some of the really hard stuff along the way. And some of the very funny stuff too.
Which is true too.
Yeah.
And Cheryl, you said you had a hard time narrowing it down to one thing to read.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, there's just too many.
I'm sure all y'all did, but you said you were still picking.
I think I think it's because I brought in most of the poetry. Marika brought in some poetry as well from the ESME site, but I'm like, I've got all the greatest hits here. Like, how do you pick one greatest hit? You know, so I really was just reaching for the right mood. But there's a poem for every mood in here. And I think that's what I appreciate about the whole book. It is, and it goes back to what Marika said about using song titles. This is our mixtape for our friends we haven't met yet who are struggling with parenthood, you know?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I wanted to go ahead and say, Christy and Celestine and Janet, jump in if you have a question. And Celestine, I'm gonna get you to unmute and say hello. Celestine is on the Poetry Society, North Carolina Poetry Society
Hi, I will unmute, but I will not cut my camera on today.
Girl, come with us. Do
But
it.
I'm so grateful to just be in this room. I love what I'm hearing. It's touched my heart in so many ways. I can't even express how much. You guys are some powerful ladies, and I'm just gonna read that book. You know, there's a whole lot of stories that sometimes you don't share. You know, it's like you guys, you know, were actual mothers, right? And I was not biologically a mother, but I've mothered many people and many other people's children. And I can still connect with a lot of those stories. You know, I've lost a child before my own. So there's a lot of things I don't talk about. It's not so that I'm ashamed of it. It's just because I don't think there's no space in the world for me to share that with. Who am I going to tell? And I don't know who is going to understand, because my family surely didn't. You know what I'm saying? And I know they love me, but they didn't understand. So I just want to thank you for just having these conversations. You know, that's why I love poetry, and I love all the people that are attached to poetry, because, you know, I think poets are so stronger than what people think. Poets are like these soft, mushy people, and we're the strongest people I know. And thank you, ladies, so much for this.
I think that's the opportunity when you do find the voice for your stories and you put them out into the world, then you can find that tribe that understands that experience, and then you form a tribe around that experience. There are very few things in which we are really alone.
I'm finding that out. And I'm finding my voice, and I started that journey in earnest over the summer. So as soon as I get, you know, a little break, I'm going to be doing so much more with that. So I hear you, and I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, Celestine, right off the bat, I can connect you with a poet that I know you'll, because her most recent book has a lot to do with loss, with, you know, wanting to have a child and having the loss of that. And I'll connect you with her. But I deeply appreciate you, you know, sharing it with us. And, you know, I have to say, Celestine, you are always around young people. Like, you have all these godchildren, and when she would show up for getting breakfast together, she'd have like 3 or 4 that you can tell that the bond is there. You know, mothering is mothering. And we know it when we see it. And I've seen it with you a lot.
I mean, it took me a while to actually value that in myself. It really did, because I didn't really, you know, I wasn't a real mother, you know, but so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and ESME, we were very self-conscious from the beginning, and that's 5 years ago. It was anyone, woman who's parenting or taking on the nurturing role, because there's so many kids in America that don't have their biological mother who's actually always there. You know, we also talk about grandmothers raising their grandchildren, you know, particularly in the African American community. This is a pretty large phenomenon. And LaShonda Pittman, who's a friend of mine, and she's written on the site. And so we really do try to understand the demographics and the stuff that's going on in the real world, which unfortunately, since I'm on the site every day, hearing the devastation and the despair during this time, if you can imagine how hard it is for single mothers. So we actually have more women on the site than ever, which is great, but sad, you know, all at once. It's a double-edged sword.
I think even, you know, my biological mom is a great lady and supportive and did the best she could and all of that. But still, those women who were not my mother, who took interest in me as a young person, are so dear to my heart and were so necessary to who I am today, that I'm 100% certain you're making a huge difference in that heart connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kept hearing you talk about mothering as a verb, like over and over again. And it's like, that's enough. Doesn't have to be a noun. You know, if mothering is a verb for you, you're in. I hear you.
Oh, Dominica, I love that. That's so well said. So well said. Thank you. No, that's perfect. And I think that that's like when Celestine said real mom, I thought mothering, that's really the thing. That is real. It's
There are
very
a whole lot of nouns who aren't
That's the
doing
work. That's the
that verb.
action.
Yeah.
No, it's perfect. I think that's very powerful. Oh gosh, that just made, oh, Celestine just wrote, thank you all for that. There are some things in the chat section. I'll go back through them. Okay. Christy really related to carried her sorrow. Wow. And that was in the first one that you read, Marika. And Carolyn wrote such a moving story. Christy wrote, rules break like a thermometer. Love this old song, new words. Carolyn said she had to leave. She said, sounds like a great, wow, I wish I had seen this a moment ago, because I think she would have really enjoyed what we just were talking about. She said, I'm neither a mom nor a solo mom, but I'll be sure to send this for my single mom friends. Best wishes. She had to leave. But I wish she had heard this, talking about mothering as a verb. And then Chris and Celestine, thank y'all for that. That's awesome. Does anybody have any questions, or we can go back to reading one other poem since Cheryl has a couple?
There's the cue. She's ready.
I also wanted to say that, we self-consciously use the word solo mom because it's a larger term than single mom, because we include women whose partners are deployed, incarcerated. We include women whose partners might be working across an ocean, or, solo moms by choice. We have a story about a woman who lost her partner to mental illness. We have, unfortunately, lots of solo moms who become solo when they have a child with special needs. So, I think what we talked about in terms of understanding the community from ESME, and then that, enhanced the book, because we understood that there was so many different experiences, so many different reasons why someone's parenting alone or woman's parenting alone. And it is hard, right? That's the crux, and it's hard. And that's why community is so important. And then the recognition that I think that we know women will read the book, and they'll find that someone gets their story.
A reflection. Well, and Marika, I kind of think that you were uniquely the right person as a sociologist and as your passion, with ESME. I can't imagine a better group than you four to have come together, really, to create this.
I think we're a pretty great group. I mean, sometimes I'm like, I wish we had a woman of color, or I sometimes think, but we do our damnedest to try to make sure that we are all embracing and understanding. And I mean, I was like diversity queen at Northwestern University. So, I taught issues around this for 15 years and was passionate. And, so I definitely carried that torch to this project. That was my intention, was that we are not going to make this a book just about divorce of middle-class white women. We're going to include all kinds of stories, and stories that include someone whose dad's incarcerated or the partner's incarcerated, or someone who's, we have Stacey Ann Shin, who's,
Love her story. Yeah.
coming out pregnant, which is about, a lesbian being pregnant, and everyone is treating her suddenly so differently. And, really wanted to make sure that we address all different types of communities and experiences. And that was actually part of the fun for me. That's where I get really stoked, is when we find a voice that we're like, oh, we want to find, this is, so yeah, it was totally in my wheelhouse to steer the ship, but I needed these wonderful women to, help edit and find and use their networks and be part of the inspiration. But yeah, I think I was the diverse, like I say, the one who's pushing hard for the diversity.
I have a feeling like I would venture to guess that Katie and Domenica have had this experience too, that we've all had to pull on an editor and be like, what about, these voices? What about, let's talk about who's missing here. And we never had to do that with Marika. Because okay, who's missing? So I've never, it was lovely to not have to explain that to anybody or feel like I had to ask permission to drag in, some new voices. And it was just fantastic to be on the same page about that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I just realized that we were actually going over time, and I'm still ready to talk for another hour, but I know you all have lives, and I know, children and lots of things to multitask with. Do you all want to end on a poem? Or
It looks like Janet had a
Janet, jump in.
Okay, I'll make it quick. So I'm the solo non-mother. I've never been a parent. Sometimes I'm not even gonna go there. I get the sense that this would be a great book for me to read, just to learn more empathy, added perspective, and I really appreciate the fact that you're talking about mothering as a verb. That means a lot to somebody like myself who hasn't had the opportunity to be a parent. Who knows? Maybe I will, but that I'm not, as a mother, that doesn't make me the odd person out, because I so want to understand. I can't replicate the experience because I've never given birth, but I so want to understand. And so want to walk in your shoes. I feel like this book might give me a chance to take that journey and then to seriously pass it along to a lot of other people. So thanks.
That's what our world needs, right? More understanding, more people curious about other people's lives.
And frankly, more mothering from everybody.
Yeah, I think that's so needed right now.
Yeah,
and
that energy. Yeah.
So the book is so timely on so many levels, and I can't thank you enough. Look forward to my own copy and devouring it.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah,
She is an avid reader too. She will devour it. But Janet, you've been mothering with my kids.
I don't feel like it.
Well,
I'm glad that I have.
You didn't knit them anything, and you did. So I think we can safely say that was a lot more like mothering.
Well,
there's a huge kindness that adults do for other people's children when they treat them like human beings. What's going on in your life? Like, tell me who you are, rather than seeing a child through their parent. To connect directly with a child is a huge gift that somebody who's not that child's parent can give. It's huge.
And I don't do it enough, and I think Malika knows why, because I feel like, am I doing it right? Because I don't have the mother.
Then you are a mother. That's all I think about 24 hours a day. So you're in. Don't worry about it.
You're in the club. That was the secret word. I'm not enough. I'm not doing it right.
Yeah.
Come on in. Welcome.
Yeah, make a few mistakes and feel guilty about them, and then you're like way past.
Oh,
so true, Domenica.
Oh,
that was perfect.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends who've read this book but don't have kids, and they're just, there's a lot of just humanity in it.
It's just a good book. Like, it has a theme, which is solo moms, but any given story and any given poem is just a wonderful read. So.
Well, and I think too, it's like the subject matter is parenting, but the themes are about resilience and finding yourself and following your truth. And who doesn't need to read more about that? So it's
I'm a child of a mother. I have a mother, so of course I'm going to find her in there.
Yeah.
And so thank you.
Yeah.
Janet. Well, thank y'all so very much. I think if we want to end with something we can, or Cheryl, did you have one that you were?
Oh, good. More.
You know what? I think I'll read this one because I think it's a good sort of moving on with resilience kind of a poem. There it is. It's called After He Left. So if you want to play with that leaving, as a sense of just change in general, an unexpected change happening, and how do you keep going after that? After he left. When the children were small and sleeping, the night warm and raining, I would go out to a place under the broken eaves, naked, yes, and standing under, wash my hair with rain and the dark of night. I could hear cars on the other side of the duplex. I could smell the sheets upstairs. I still couldn't touch anything labeled future. Lonely in the rain, the spirit is beautiful. It can marry the heart for no one to see. Like I said, I washed my hair under the broken rain and stood there in the night, glistening.
That might be
Thank
my
you.
favorite. That's awesome.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Perfect one to end on. Thank y'all so very much. This was,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malika.
and we're gonna tape this. We can send it out to people. I feel so selfish that we had y'all to ourselves. I really do.
I can't wait to share this.
Huh?
You're taping it?
Yes, it's taped. So we will make sure other people have an opportunity, because I do feel like that was, yes. And that way we can send it out to people who weren't able to come for whatever reasons. And I think
Plus it's
Celestine
homecoming, so it's all good.
Yeah, Celestine said awesome ending. Thank y'all. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
See you
Everybody
next week.
stay safe.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hi,
Bye.
great to